Hello and welcome to Trending at 10. I'm Sanket Upadhyay. Amid the cheer of corporate tax cut and FDI, amid also the cheer of a possible trade bonhomie between India and the United States, is the news that affects the common man most. Diesel and petrol prices have seen the steepest rise since earlier this year. Post the 7th consecutive hike, petrol is now dearer by almost 2 rupees and diesel by 1.5 rupees. This is being attributed to an expensive import owing to the oil crisis in the Gulf. But how does the government propose to explain this to the common man? What is the government's plan? Can we expect a cut in taxes similar to the one announced by the late former Finance Minister Arun Jaitley? That discussion up ahead. All right, let me introduce our guest this evening. Geeta Bhatt is a political analyst. Mr. Akhlaq Usmani is a senior journalist. Tehseen Poonawalla, a political analyst. And Abhishek Rajaram is an economist. Thank you so much, all of you all. It's an important issue because amid the cheer, amid the excitement, and also amid possible talk of a slowdown, not possible talk, this is an important story which needs to be highlighted as well. The plight of the people because of the increase in fuel prices. Let me first begin with you, Mr. Abhishek Rajaram. We understand and we know and we are aware of the reasons why this is happening. But obviously and naturally there will be an expectation that the government takes action. What has been the response of the government in the past? We've seen, we know the late Arun Jaitley's model, where the petrol and diesel prices were cut by the centre by about 2.5 rupees. The states too followed by cutting it by 2.5 rupees. There's a relief of 5 rupees was passed on to the consumers. Do you think that's a model the government must consider even now?
They can consider, but they will not consider. There's a lukewarm, the way the government is tackling this issue is not the correct one, because when you see on 5th of July, when the budget came, they introduced or they raised excise duty, which impacted 2 to 2.5 rupees enhancement. And in last 1 week, in last 7 days, we had seen almost 30 paisa to 50 paisa hike in petrol and diesel prices. And government can cut short their excise duty and it can reduce it. They can also reduce customs duty also, but they will not do it because they have recently announced a reform or a cut in corporate tax. Now, when they have to bear the burden of 1,45,000 crore rupees of corporate tax, which they have reduced, now they need to cover up that taxes. And in fact, it should be reverse way, that they will enhance 1 or 2 rupees per litre excise duty rather than reducing it. So petrol prices might go very dearer.
Okay.
And Arun Jaitley model will not work because this government is not going to follow it. If they wanted to follow it, then on the budget itself they would have not enhanced prices of
okay, but there was there was some reasoning that was given back then that the international crude oil rates have eased a bit and that's why these taxes are back. Now they're not easing, in fact they're increasing. So can they go back to that model will be an important question.
They will not go back because in fact after what has happened in Saudi Arabia, Aramco case, so then prices will go up, the crude prices will go up, and Brent prices will also go up. So they are not going to provide any liquidity or ease off to government. And once crude oil prices start rising, then it will automatically decrease the rate of our rupee in front of dollar, because we are importing. So it will be double trouble for the government, because the rise of crude oil will increase their fiscal deficit and it will also have impact on current account deficit.
Okay. Geeta Bhatt, I want to come to you now. How do you explain all of this to the common man? Or do you think he is understanding the international problems?
Well, Sanket ji, the fact remains that you see India imports nearly 80% of its crude oil, and Saudi Arabia has been they are the second largest importers of cooking gas as well as of crude oil. Now, after the drone attacks which have taken place, everyone knows that the oil production in Saudi Arabia has been reduced to nearly half of what they were doing earlier. Although they have said that by the end of this month, the government, Saudi Arabian government, is saying that they will be able to restore back to the normal production of crude oil. But the fact remains that that is going to that the ripples are being felt all across the globe. If you look at the the international benchmark of Brent crude, that there is a 20% hike in it, which is which is almost after 3 decades that such a steep hike has taken place. So these ripples are being felt all across the globe, and since we import such a high amount of crude oil from Saudi Arabia, which is nearly 1/5 of the total, so that is the reason that that is that pinch we are feeling. But eventually one can just hope that they are able to start producing.
No, that's Geeta Bhatt.
Used to be around 12
Geeta Bhatt, one moment. That's why
per day.
That's why my question to you was very particular. How do you explain this to the common man? Do you think this will be understood, or do you think some relief needs to be given? Because with each passing day, the price is increasing, and it is directly going to impact every aspect of life. It will have a cascading effect. Do you think that the government must step in, or just wait for the end of this month, or for one more month?
Yes. I think at this time, what has been a challenge for the government is to get a continuous supply also. And that is what the Petroleum Ministry has been saying, that we have been able to pick up the crude oil from Saudi Arabia, whatever is our demand, even during September 16th and 17th, where there was a there was a peak high at that time. Then also there was a regular supply from Saudi Arabia to India, so that also is an important aspect. And the kind of that, if the government wants to step in, that is a call which I think if this trend does not stop, maybe it needs to, that call needs to be taken, so that it can provide some relief to the common man's back pocket. But for how long? That is the point.
Okay, Tehseen Poonawalla, let me come to you now. You've heard the explanation of Geeta Bhatt. I'm only assuming that this is the feeling within the government as well. They would be expecting to I don't know, maybe expect people to understand that this is a problem, and truth be told, it is a genuine problem. This was not something that the government could see coming. But what really should the response be? Let me just add by saying that had this been, had they been on the other side of the bench, had they been in the opposition benches, I think the response of this very establishment would have been very different, or the expectation would have been very different.
Absolutely right, Sanket, and it's unfortunate that because of their policies, which have not put India at the center for, the current government has led to this man-made crisis. It's not a crisis that is being created only because of international situation. It's a crisis created by this government. Let me explain one.
How?
Number one, there was no reason to spoil our equation with Iran. Iran has been a true friend of ours for past 70 years. It stood by us through thick and thin. Just because you wanted to go into the American camp, under American pressure, you spoiled your equations with Iran. India always maintained equal balance with Saudi and with Iran, both rivals, with America and with Russia, both rivals. We've now put ourselves in the American camp, and that's problematic. That's affecting our sovereignty. Point number two, I agree with what my previous speaker, Abhishek Rajaramji, said. The problem is that this government does not have any headway in either the fiscal, because of fiscal deficit and the current account deficit. Many people are actually questioning our numbers on the fiscal deficit. We keep saying, look, it's 3.9%, etc. It's actually 8 or 9% because they don't count the PSUs and the states in it. Therefore, you you have no headway. So now that you've removed corporate tax, which is about 1,50,000 crores odd, you have to make up somewhere because you have a huge deficit which is going to lead to further, problems. Now here is where my problem is. By removing the corporate tax, you may hope that the company may invest in India. It's a hope. But when you actually empower somebody, when they have lesser oil prices, who buys diesel, who buys petrol? Is a middle class like you and me who uses it the most. That money is being consumed in India. Today you're living on hope by actually making a large chunk of population suffer. The same large chunk of population that pays a higher income tax while the corporates get away with a lower income, with a lower tax. Therein is a fundamental problem of this government. It simply does not understand economics. And to my last point, and it's a political point, why can't this government of Narendra Modi ji, 56-inch chest, howdy Modi, why can't he put petrol and diesel in GST? If in 1 second he can do demonetization and make all of us suffer. Let me make this point. Very important.
There's states involved.
Sanket, I request you, it's a very important point. At a drop of a hat, without the RBI permission, if he can do demonetization, we now know RBI did not approve of it. Why can't he, with a majority that he has in the GST council as well, he has 28 states, including now Kashmir as a union territory, divided by 3, he has 28 numbers. Why can't he put petrol and diesel in GST? Why can't Mr. 56-inch do it? You know why? I'll answer that. Because that howdy dowdy event in the US was sponsored by an energy lobbyist who benefits in India not trading with Iran but trading with Saudi Arabia. I dare the government of India to come out with a clarification on this. They won't do it.
Okay.
They won't do it.
Okay, Geeta, but I'm going to come back to you in just a short moment. Let me take the opening comments of our fourth guest, Akhlaq Usmani. Mr. Usmani, what do you have to say? You've heard what Tehseen had to say. He feels that it's a mixture of a number of reasons, and just claiming that international prices of crude is responsible for this steep price hike is not correct.
Certainly, Sanket, I agree with you, and not only that, I also, taking lead from the statement which have been given by Abhishek Raja. India is facing a problem on crude oil supply on 2-3 major fronts. Not only in the increasing crude price, it's also that dollar is dearer to against Indian rupee, and domestic crude is also continue to fall. I just want to give you one fact that is being given by Petroleum Planning and Analysis, that PPAC, that since 2017-18 and this fiscal year, India's oil consumption increased to 211.6 million tons, while our domestic crude output continues to fall. It's around 34.2 millions fail. So there are, the numbers of problems against our oil supply, and I don't think that this government is have any strong strategy to fight this situation.
Okay. Geeta, but let me now quickly come back to you. You heard what Tehseen had to say. It's a number of factors, and international prices is just one of them. How about taking the care of the factors domestically?
Sanketji, I just want to, go a little bit back. 2012 oil, crude oil prices globally had increased. 2013 they had increased. 2014 they had increased. And at that time, it is important to remember that what the UPA government had decided to do, especially in context of Iran, and that is that they decided to buy the, oil bonds. And what were these oil bonds? It was nothing else but giving a post-dated check that, in future we are going to pay for the oil that is being supplied to us now, and that is how they were trying to do some balancing act. When the new government came in 2014, they already, they were already under debt of these, oil bonds, which they had to pay back something of the tune of 2 lakh crore rupees. That much amount had to be paid back to the Iranian government. Now, when this kind of a legacy was inherited by the government, this much, that was that, even in the past tenure, there were questions which were raised that why the, petrol and diesel prices are not being decreased when the crude oil across the globe, the prices are falling. Because the reason was that there was already so much of debt. over the government, which was taken by the previous government.
That's not true.
So it
Sanjeev.
is important to, to see
I'll come
that
back
we
to
do
you.
not fall into this kind of a trap again, in which, the previous government, they had fallen, or they decided to fall into it.
What about the comment on taxes? One moment, Tehseen, I'll come to
Sorry,
you.
I apologize.
What about the comment on taxes? Reduction of taxes. It's a model which has been followed by the NDA, by Arun Jaitley. We've seen it being used only recently. Geeta Bhatt.
Well, you see, maybe in the coming time, this kind of a model would be taken into consideration, considering that there have been a series of economic reforms which have been just announced. There have been corporate tax reduction which has been announced by the government. So they are going to take some amount of time to take a feedback and look into this scene. Maybe this kind of a announcement is made in the near future.
Okay, Tehseen.
Let's do a fact check here. Let's not give numbers like 2 lakh crores. We have experts on our channel. The amount outstanding to Iran was 43,600 crores, out of which the other amount outstanding was from the period of 2013 to 2016. Guess which 56-inch man was in power from 2014 to 2016. Now, the reason this was outstanding is not again because of either Prime Minister Modi or Manmohan Singh. Unlike, I do not give untrue facts. It was outstanding because the Iranian banks were not integrated in the global system, and until that time, Iran used to take 45% of its money in Indian rupees. Now, I don't want to get into too much of details and confuse your viewers because Deen Dayal Upadhyay WhatsApp University people may not understand it. So let's stick to facts. The fact of the matter was, under every circumstances from 2012 until 2014, India and Iran worked together. Therefore, even when the oil prices reached a very high, it reached its peak, our oil prices domestically did not cross the numbers that it did cross. But I want to read out one thing before I end. In 2013 end, December, a very wise man tells about the petrol prices. The problem is not the international market. The problem is the government in India. That man was the then Chief Minister of Gujarat, Shri Narendra Modi. I hope that man was still Chief Minister and he could advise Prime Minister Narendra Modi a little bit of what he was tweeting in 2013 and 14.
Okay. Geeta Bhatt, would you like to respond?
Well, that was because it was seen that how the present government was trying to, do about the oil prices while they were trying to bring oil from Iran in terms of buying of oil bonds. That is what was being talked about.
No, one moment.
I just
One
explained
more.
the whole
Tehseen
thing. Sorry,
and Geeta
I
Bhatt.
apologize. I just
Can we
explained the whole
please
thing.
come
Here is this being
to the
questioned is
present?
that whether it is
Yes.
a political posturing, it is the political posturing, or it is the problem which is being targeted by Mr. Tehseen Poonawalla.
The problem is we are talking about a period of 2013 to 16. It's 43,600. You were in government from 14 to 16. So you should have ended it. You should read Dharmendra Pradhan's statements on that. In fact, Prime Minister Modi categorically spoke about that. You may ask the experts on this. Let's not go into that. The issue is, why did you spoil our equation with Iran today, from where we got 12% of our imports? A. B. Why don't you put petrol and diesel in GST? Answer these two questions. What Manmohan Singh ji did, he's out of power. You're in power. Answer what you did in 6 years. When you reached as low as $27.
Okay, one
you
more.
As low as $27.
Let's get a response so that we can move on.
The
Yeah.
GST Council has to take a decision over it. There are all the finance ministers are there. They are the part of the GST Council, and they can take a call on it and decide on it.
Okay. Geeta Bhatt as well as Tehseen Poonawalla, you can argue later.
Thank you.
But let me
Sure.
now bring in Mr. Abhishek Rajaram once again into the discussion. Mr. Rajaram, this is a pertinent point. I mean, why is petrol and diesel out of the ambit of the GST is a big puzzle.
Sir,
I mean, I can understand that this is not a decision that can unilaterally be taken by the center. You need the approval of the states, right? But why is there no consensus?
Sir, the issue is, while drafting GST, they have mentioned that 5 products, petroleum products, they would come into GST. The issue is, if they come into GST, then if the state's portion is less, then government has to pay for next 5 years, and they don't want to take a call. Earlier, when Dharmendra Pradhan was the petroleum minister, he said that we are going to do it in the next council. Till date, 37 council meeting has been done, and this was never in the agenda of
Because it's a
GST
tricky
council.
issue.
Sir, they will never do it because regarding cess also, now their payment to cess to the states is 13,000 crore. Wherever their collection is only 8,000 crore. So they are sitting on the deficit of 5,000 crore for every month on the cess portion. If they add up or if they bring petroleum products in the in GST also, then center might have to pay some portion of their collections to states also. So that's why central government will never want, or even they have not made any single attempt to bring petroleum products under GST. Whatever they had said while launching GST on 1st July 2017, it has never been followed. And one more thing, just by in fact increase of crude oil prices, increase in prices of petrol or diesels or petroleum products will increase our cash account deficit. For example, in 2017-18, our cash account deficit was $49 billion, whereas for 18-19, it is $68 billion, which is $19 billion more. And our international reserves for the March 2019 has also reduced. On March 18, we had $431 billion reserves, and now we are having only $411.9 billion reserves, which is less than 12.5 billion. So in this case, they don't have money also to pump in to to supply at a lesser price.
Very interesting analysis. Very interesting analysis. A deep dive into
and
why the government will face with great difficulty.
So last line, if $10 is increased per barrel, then it could lead to $12 to $14 billion rise in current account deficit. So government don't have money, don't have reserves to stop price increase in India. So prices are going to increase for petrol and diesels both.
Well, that's not a very pleasing picture, Geeta Bhatt. This does not sound all well. See, there is a huge problem. You cannot offer doles, if they were, to people in the form of tax concessions. But you will have to, because it will make political sense.
You see, there are challenges. There is no doubt about it. There are challenges, and there has been a global slowdown of economy, and India cannot remain indifferent to it. In the 21st century, we all realize that. But the fact remains is that there are being efforts which are being made. And in the coming times, we have the kind of economic boost which is being given. I mean, there have been more or less there are 3 budgets in the last 7 months, and the government is trying to make efforts, and there is a hope that there will be revival. There are certain sectors which are doing well, and there are certain sectors in which it is required. And that is the reason, like in the automobile sector, there are a lot of benefits which have been given. But for example, FMCGs, they have been doing pretty well. Those companies have been doing pretty well. And even if you look at other industries like the apparel industry, they in the first quarter has shown a growth. The pharmaceutical companies have shown a growth. Even the chemical industry, they have shown a growth.
I want to counter it.
Mr. Rajaram wants to take a go again. Yes.
So while there are positives, there are certain negatives also.
When the economy is growing at only 5%, then which sector is growing? What benefits they have given to auto sector? They said, keep on saying that we will reduce prices of GST rates for auto sector. We will reduce prices for GST rates for biscuits FMCG. They did nothing on 20th September. It was an opportunity which was wasted. On 5th of July, they came with a budget. They said this budget is for 10 years, and after 3 months, on 23rd of August and on 20th September, they changed what were the provisions introduced on 5th of July. And it is less than 4 months. Now, next budget has to come. There is only headlines and media management by them, merely stating that we are going to become $5 trillion economy. Will it become $5 trillion economy?
Okay. Okay. Larger points being discussed over here. Let me now quickly take a closing comment from Mr. Usmani. Mr. Usmani,
Yeah, I just
in your wisdom,
yeah,
what do you think needs to be done? What should the government's plan be? We've understood the problems.
Government can, because the Iran is always there to support us, even not only on oil bond, but Iran is also regularly supplying oil to India on barter system.
That's true.
Where they are not seeking, the direct dollars or the foreign currency. They are also accepting Indian rupee at third place even. So if we can take Iran into our confidence, then we can make it feasible.
Okay.
Sanket, just one quick point.
Very quickly,
India was
running out of time.
negotiating with a Turkish bank because that was acceptable to both Iran and India. I wish that goes ahead. And I also want to reiterate, there was never a tool like that. It was 43,600 from 2013 to 2016.
Sure.
All you experts know that. So we should not put wrong facts out.
Geeta Bhatt, Akhlaq Usmani, Tehseen Poonawala and Abhishek Rajaram. Many thanks for joining us on this broadcast.